We got more bombshell revelations from the committee investigating Donald Trump's attempted coup on January 6th. Today, the committee released new evidence that Trump and one of the key plotters in the coup, a lawyer named John Eastman, knew their plan would violate the law. And that same lawyer also had direct contact with Ginny Thomas, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, in the lead up to January 6th. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. These hearings keep providing us with more damning evidence that Trump's attempted coup wasn't just some spontaneous outbreak of mob violence. It was a detailed plan orchestrated by figures including Trump himself, who had criminal intent and who almost certainly knew what they were doing was illegal. I know on one level that's obvious, but it's still important to establish. It's kind of like how you know the mysterious British husband in an HBO miniseries is the bad guy just from looking at him, but you still need to, watch Hugh Grant push a dude out a window just to be sure. And even then, Nicole Kidman's character will probably still be like, I just don't know what to think. Fetch me my giant shawl. I need to go for a midnight walk. For example, the committee played new video from a deposition with Pence's former chief of staff, Mark Short, where Short said Pence has made clear many times to Trump that he had no authority to unilaterally overturn the election.
Was it your impression that the vice president had directly conveyed his position on these issues to the president, not just to the world through a dear colleague letter, but directly to President Trump?
Many times.
And had been consistent in conveying his position to the president?
Very consistent.
Although, no matter how consistent you are with Trump, you know he's going to keep pushing. The dude probably can't buy a toothbrush at CVS without haggling. That'll be $2.99. All right, how about you throw in $5 and a lifetime supply of toilet paper? No. All right, what if you just give me the toothbrush for free? No. All right, how about this? I'll give you $2.99, you give me the toothbrush, and we'll call it even. All right, yeah, fine. Another successful deal by the Donald. I'm gonna turn this around and sell it for $2.49, and then who's laughing? In fact, in a meeting in the Oval Office on January 4th, the lawyer pushing the plan to have Pence overturn the election, a guy named John Eastman, admitted that his plan would violate the law, according to a deposition from a Pence lawyer named Greg Jacob. We'll have more to say on this meeting later, but here's what Jacob had to say in that deposition about Eastman admitting in front of Trump that his plan would break the law.
When exactly did President Trump know that it would be illegal for Mike Pence to refuse to count electoral votes? Here is one sample of testimony given by one of the witnesses before us today, the Vice President's General Counsel.
Did John Eastman ever admit, as far as you know, in front of the president, that his proposal would violate the Electoral Count Act?
I believe he did on the 4th.
So that means Trump knew it was illegal. Even his own pro-coup lawyer admitted it was illegal, and yet he still tried to threaten and coerce Pence into doing it to the point where he basically sicked a violent mob on Pence to get him to do it. I'm no lawyer, but how is that not an indictable offense? I feel like even Nicole Kidman would say, oh yeah, he's definitely guilty. I don't need the shawl for this one. And by the way, this comes on top of all the evidence already provided by the first two hearings that Trump and everyone around him knew his stolen election claims were false and that they were just fabricated pretexts for a premeditated plan to overturn the election. In fact, there was actually supposed to be another hearing before today, but that hearing, originally scheduled for Wednesday, was postponed for mysterious reasons. So far, members of the committee have said the reasons for that postponement have been technical. They need to give their team more time to produce the material, specifically the video clips needed for each hearing.
I understand there is a bit of a change in the schedule pertaining to tomorrow's hearing. Do you know anything about when it will be and what's going on?
I think we're just firming up. There's no big deal, but I'll tell you, the putting together the video and the exhibits is an exhausting exercise for our very small, video staff. So we're trying to, we were going to have 1, 2, 3 in 1 week, and it's too much to put it all together.
I get it. We also have a small staff pulling and cutting together video clips 3 days a week for our Closer Looks. True story, here's a real picture of our Closer Look video researcher, Emily, from when she started on this show. And here she is after 8 years of watching Fox News clips. Oh, damn it! Guys, we gotta deprogram Emily again. If producing these hearings is getting too hard for you guys, you know what you should do? You should just do them from your attic at home. No audience. No crew, just Liz Cheney, an iPad camera, and an annoying painting of a sea captain in the background. There you go. People don't know this about Liz Cheney. She's actually a huge Sea Captain fan. This is true. After we came back to the studio and stopped featuring him on the show, I called her up and asked her what she thought of the Sea Captain. She told me,
please get him on TV.
Anyway, the reason they gave for postponing Wednesday's hearing was logistical, although Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren did provide this tantalizing hint that perhaps they had also learned some new information that made them delay that hearing until next week.
Explain to us why tomorrow was postponed and how we should understand that affecting the rest of the hearings.
Well, I don't think it's going to have much of any impact. We had a lot of hearings compressed together, and there were logistical problems that are going to be avoided by kicking one of the hearings over to next week.
There's no reason that I should think like, oh, there's something going on, they learned a new thing, a witness backed out, etc.
Well, we're constantly learning new things, but this is primarily logistical.
Primarily.
I'll just leave it at that.
Woo! That is quite the tease. I do like that members of Congress who've spent their whole lives learning when to talk and when to keep something secret are suddenly turning into high school gossips now that they've got secret dirt. The rest of us want to know. Did you hear about Rudy? He was wasted at the party last night. Is that why he's not in school today? Mostly. He also hooked up with his cousin. Second, I hope. Yeah, second. He got wasted first and hooked up with his cousin second. That was definitely the order. Say what you will about this committee, but they do know how to build suspense. At the end of Monday's hearing, for example, they played a preview clip teasing what was to come. It was a clip from a deposition with former White House lawyer Eric Hirschman describing a conversation he had with Eastman. Here's a fuller clip that was released later of Hirschman describing that conversation with Eastman after the attack on January 6th.
Eastman, I don't remember why he called me, or he texted me or called me, wanted to talk with me, and he said he couldn't reach others. And he started to ask me about something dealing with Georgia and preserving something potentially for appeal. And I said to him, "Are you out of your effing mind?" Right? I said, I only want to hear two words coming out of your mouth from now on. Orderly transition. And I screamed, I said, I don't want to hear any other effing words coming out of your mouth, no matter what, other than orderly transition. Repeat those words to me. And I screamed, and eventually he said, orderly transition. I said, good, John. Now I'm going to give you the best free legal advice you're ever getting in your life. Get a great effing criminal defense lawyer. You're going to need it. And then I hung up on him.
Damn, that guy should definitely audition for the next season of Billions. The guy you'd be playing is a hard-ass lawyer who has a baseball bat with justice written on it. Hey, I already got one of those. Excuse me, effing got one of those. Now, as we've explained, Eastman is obviously a key figure in the coup attempt. For example, even though Eastman apparently admitted that his plan would break the law, Trump still tried to get Pence to go through with Eastman's plan in a heated Oval Office meeting where Trump kept telling Pence to listen to Eastman.
Stunning new details on Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election from the new book Peril by Bob Woodward and Robert Costa. The authors report on a two-page memo drafted by John Eastman. John Eastman is a conservative lawyer who was working for Trump's legal team. It amounts to a blueprint for a coup. NBC News has later obtained the memo. It outlines how Pence was to have disrupted the certification of the Electoral College results and handed the election to Trump. Trump tells Pence this about Eastman, quote, "You really need to listen to John. He's a respected constitutional scholar. Hear him out. Listen to John."
He is not a respected constitutional scholar. No respected constitutional scholar would ever be caught dead working for a famously corrupt idiot like Donald Trump. Trump gets all his lawyers from bus stop ads and TV commercials. Hey, you want to do a coup? Call Eastman and Giuliani. We don't have a phone number, but you can find us at our office in the woods at Central Park. Even though the cops are always hassling us. We need a permit for a desk in the park now? All right. And even in advance of today's hearing, we kept getting more and more details about the scope of this coup attempt and who was involved. For example, we found out yesterday that Ginny Thomas, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, had a direct contact with Eastman, and that the January 6th committee has obtained those emails.
The Washington Post is reporting tonight the January 6th committee has obtained email correspondence between Virginia Ginny Thomas, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, and lawyer John Eastman, who played a key role in efforts to pressure Vice President Mike Pence to block the certification of Joe Biden's victory.
The spouse of a sitting Supreme Court justice was apparently in direct communication with the key figure in the planning of a coup. That seems like a pretty clear conflict of interest. It's like if I found out my parents were doing this year's Thanksgiving show with James Corden. Good luck, James! Good luck, buddy. Hope you're fully stocked on Grey Goose. I'm not saying justices' spouses should always come into play or be scrutinized, but in this case, it seems pretty clear. I mean, Ginny Thomas also reportedly pressured Arizona lawmakers to overturn their state's results and texted Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, about a bunch of truly insane election fraud conspiracy theories. How can the Supreme Court just ignore that? In fact, the text to Meadows in particular are truly shocking. At one point, Thomas wrote to Meadows, watermarked ballots in over 12 states have been part of a huge Trump and military white hat sting operation in 12 key battleground states. And in another, she quoted a passage that is circulated on right-wing websites. Biden crime family and ballot fraud co-conspirators, elected officials, bureaucrats, social media censorship mongers, fake stream media reporters, etc., are being arrested and detained for ballot fraud right now and over the coming days, and will be living in barges off Gitmo to face military tribunals for sedition. And then again, she texted Meadows, do not concede. It takes time for the army who is gathering for his back. Whoa! Those texts make Mike Lindell sound like a level-headed businessman. That lady is crazier than a house rat, and I should know because you should hear the things the rats whisper to me when I'm sleeping under the stairs. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing. You rats want jobs inside a pillowcase? Don't think of it as being stuffing. Now, here's the thing. I know those texts all sound insane to you, but it's important to remember they really are insane. I think my favorite part is when she says the Biden crime family and ballot fraud co-conspirators will be living in barges off Gitmo. Obviously, all this stuff is bonkers, but I am curious about one thing. Why would they live in a barge off Gitmo? Like, why wouldn't they just be sent to Gitmo? Why would Trump, who I guess, I don't know, would be the supreme leader in this scenario, incur the extra cost of running a barge offshore? I mean, you got staff, maintenance, you got weather concerns. Why wouldn't he just put them in a cell inside Gitmo and save himself all that? And why am I pitching ideas on this? This is how they get you, isn't it? This is how they got Emily. That's how they got Emily. By the way, just last month, Clarence Thomas gave a speech where he said that the judiciary is threatened if people are unwilling to live with outcomes we don't agree with, as well as saying it can't be that institutions give you the outcome you want or can be bullied to do the same. And that was him bitching that someone leaked a draft opinion that would overturn Roe v. Wade. Meanwhile, his wife is burning through her cell phone data plan, texting everyone in her contacts list that it's time for an army to gather because the election didn't break her way. We need to live with outcomes we don't agree with. Now let's get those barges ready for the Bidens! Whoa! Cool down, Ginny! Once again, these hearings had provided more damning evidence that Trump and his cronies knew what they were doing, would violate the law, and tried to do it anyway. It was a detailed, orchestrated plan for a coup, and they almost got away with it. Again, I'm no lawyer, but if you genuinely think Trump didn't commit a crime, all I can say is...
Are you out of your effing mind?
This has been a closer look. God's Love We Deliver cooks and brings over 2 million meals a year to men, women, and children living with HIV, AIDS, cancer, and other serious illnesses, and they need your help now more than ever. If you're watching this online, you can hit the donate button. Stay safe, get vaccinated. We love you.